This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What's something you'd love to learn? As an adult, do you make time to learn new things as often as you'd like, or is that lost in childhood? Kids are always learning and growing, but as adults, sometimes we lose that curiosity. With having to balance school, social life, and family, things tend to speed up really quickly in September, sometimes leaving me stressed or anxious. Therapy could be really beneficial, allowing you to slow down and take a step back. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THPN today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/THPN. Okay, we're back for part 2. We're going to dive into the defenseman and goalie section of our 2028 potential lineup. I'm going to bring it up right away, Liam. You're going to kick us off with your thoughts, your takes, whatever you want. But here we go.
All right.
Lane Hutson, David Reinbacher, Caden Guhle, Logan Mailloux, Arbor Jacki, and Bogdan Konyushkov. I think I said that properly.
Yeah. Bogdan Konyushkov. Yeah, if you want to just zoom out. There we go. That's good.
There we go.
Lane Hutson, David Reinbacher. I feel like that's the ultimate duo, ultimate D pairing partner for the future. What the Canadiens are looking to do. We got the 5'9" defenseman Lane Hutson and then the 6'4" defenseman David Reinbacher. We talk about Lane Hutson a lot. The guy is absolutely electric. His vision, his IQ, everything on the ice is outstanding. His skating ability is unreal. It's top tier. It's up there with the play styles of Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes, Adam Fox. It's just super exciting in the Canadiens world to have a guy like this, and especially that we got him in the second round. Like, it's just absolutely unreal. So having him, I don't think the Canadiens necessarily have a number one D-man. I think it's more of a unit. It's more of a bunch of guys who are very, very good. I don't think it's like a one-man show like Cale Makar or, Adam Fox or anyone that I just named, Quinn Hughes. But I think him and David Reinbacher together will be just an absolutely unreal duo. David Reinbacher, more of the two-way defenseman, even if you want to say the defensive defenseman, while Lane Hutson is able to carry the offensive load. Just going back to his time at Boston University, 49 points in 38 games last season. Is that 38? Yeah. And then the season before, 48 and 39. It's just, he's the PP1 defenseman of the future. And I don't think there's that much else to say. In the 2 games we saw him in Montreal last season, I don't think anyone's been, it's up there with the debuts of Cole Caulfield and Slav. Everyone was so excited, and I think he lived up to those expectations. We're hoping the same thing this season if he does make the Montreal Canadiens lineup. Just going back to David Reinbacher quickly, bit of a slower development, drafted 5th overall in 2023. Yep, 2023.
Correct.
Right now, actually, playing in the, what is it? I think it's the Olympic qualifiers.
For Austria.
Yeah, for Austria. And I'm telling you, that some of those highlights are really, really nice. And he is big. I don't know if he's grown in terms of height, but it looks like he's put on some weight. And I think any team needs a defenseman like that. I like to compare him to Alex Pietrangelo. Maybe not as offensive, but the size and the difficulty to play against. It's a guy you need in the playoffs. And look, Reinbacher got a lot of hate. And I don't think it was deserving so, because considering we have Hutson, considering we have some other really good skilled defensemen, Reinbacher is going to play a pivotal role for the Canadiens for the next 10, 15 years. So I'm really excited personally to see if he's able to crack the Montreal Canadiens lineup. I don't know if he will. I think he'll start off in Laval, but in 4 years, when he's, 23, 24, I think he's going to be a real, real good player for this league.
I'll play devil's advocate here for a second. Do you think there's a world, because I saw this trending on Twitter, or on my Twitter at least, do you think that there's a world where we could see a pairing of Hutson, Mailloux, and Guhle Reinbacher, or is that not something that interests you at all?
I just don't like that combination as much, because I think Mailloux brings a bit of a more offensive game than Reinbacher, and just because Hudson brings, like, his game is 90% offense. It's just drive, 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 keep going. While Reinbacher is more of a stay at home, stay back, drive the play, start the play, rather than Mailloux, who brings that bit of
Reinbacher's that first
offense.
pass guy, right?
Exactly, exactly. He's gonna be that. He's gonna be the guy to get that stain back, while Hudson's gonna take the puck and go. So I feel like that duo together is just a perfect match. While, look, maybe it could happen, but I feel like it's a stronger duo than Guhle and Mailloux.
Okay, fair enough. We'll move on to Guhle. By the way, I mimic what you said. I mean, I'm not really gonna jump in there. Hudson's
Yeah,
electric. Reinbacher. I'm actually really. I think he's one of the prospects that I'm looking forward to the most, even though he might be considered or coined as one of the more boring top 5 picks that the Canadiens have made in recent
sure.
history. But I just think that it's going to be one of those guys where he's gonna jump into the lineup, and people are going to be like, "Holy cow, he's actually like unbelievable." Like he doesn't do anything. He's going to do things that are great, but he's not going to be like Hudson, like you said, where it's
He's not flashy.
right. He's not going to be doing circles around the ozone. But what
Yeah.
he's going to be doing is the things that no one likes to do, and it's the dirty work, it's the blocking shots, it's the first pass, and it's the smart play. And I think that is, considering that we took Demidov, and again, this is a whole topic for a different day because we've had this conversation how many times, Liam? Like maybe one too many. But I think that parlaying parlaying Demidov, Reinbacher, and Slav is a very good foundation, right? And I'm not saying that taking Michkov or passing up on Michkov was the right thing. I'm just saying that I think Reinbacher, considering that we took Demidov, bodes very, very well with what the Canadiens are trying to build, if that makes sense.
I think they have all the right pieces. It's not a surplus of one skill
Right.
type. It's, you're covering everything.
Because here's my question, and I think that this is actually really interesting. What would happen? What would our lineup look like? And I know we're going back on the forwards. I just want to talk about it for a second. What would happen if we did draft Michkov instead of Reinbacher? Like, I think that would be really interesting because I think what you just said with the surplus is very valid there.
Yeah, I mean, you got to assume that they're not drafting Demidov, and they'd probably go for a defenseman in this past draft. So
Yeah,
it's a flip flop. It's a flip flop.
That's true. Okay, we'll move on to the second pairing here. Guhle on the left, Mailloux on the right. Guhle is that leader that I think every Habs fan is kind of, just loves. Like, I think he does the boring stuff, but he does it so well that he's just so likable. And I think Logan Mailloux is going to be that, I don't want to say dark horse or X factor, because I don't think this D-Corps' success is dependent on a Mailloux, but I think he really could, if he pans out, take it to that next level. What are your thoughts? We know Guhle. We've talked about Guhle. What are your thoughts a little bit more on Mailloux?
Well, I just wanted to add one thing about Guhle. I had the chance to actually see him on the ice right in front of my eyes. I was on the ice with him, and his skating is just unreal, like very, very underrated. He moves really, really well, and I think that's one of the things that he possesses that not a lot of two-way defensemen have like him in the league. So I think Guhle's a really, really very strong two-way D-man. We talked about him a lot, but his skating, just wanted to add that in. He's very, very strong.
And everyone, and especially Habs Twitter, kind of bothers me because I feel like you and I are very. I don't think we're biased Habs fans. I think we tell it how it is. Obviously, we get excited, but we tell it how it is. But like people on Habs Twitter get excited for anything and everything. But the one thing that kind of bothers me, it's a good clip, but it's overused. It's like when Guhle's skating backwards with a flying Owen Tippett down the left side, and he makes a really nice defensive play on him. And it's like everyone's saying, like, if this is what he's going to bring to the table for the next 10 years, sign me up. And like, I agree to a certain extent. It's obviously being blown out of proportion. But to your point, is that he does have that skating, and it is underrated. And I think that is something that will offer him so much versatility in this top 6, where he can kind of play up, play down, play big minutes, play, situational minutes. And that's like why he's such a huge leader for this team. And I think Mailloux, like I said, like I think he can be that offensive dark horse. I really do. I think he could be that PP2 guy.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Like maybe Guhle and Mailloux's that PP2 defenseman lineup, considering most PP2s now have 2 D-men. But I think they both have like an offensive part of their game, which is really cool because not many two-way D-men have that, that attribute. And I think Mailloux, again, in his game or whatever, 2 games that he played with the Canadiens, he really brought something that we haven't really seen with a lot of defenseman prospects. He had the 1 assist, but just considering his games in the AHL as well, like look at those points for
A
a,
defenseman.
a rookie
Yeah,
defenseman in the AHL. He made the All-Star game.
yeah,
I
he did.
think we talked about that. Yeah. It's really exciting to see. Like, again, he's 21 years old, so much room for development, and he's not small by any means. He's 6'3".
6'3".
Yeah, 6'3" there, probably even bigger on the ice. So I think this Canadians line, this defensive lineup is really, really scary. They have that. I heard a GM talking about this, and it was an interviewer asked to Kent Hughes or Jeff Gordon, I forget who it was, but the question was along the lines of, are you trying to match the Vegas decor strategy where all your guys are over like 6'2"? And the answer that I think it was Ken Hughes he gave was, you can't mimic every Stanley Cup winner's strategy because it changes year after year. Like, look at Florida again; they have some smaller guys, or look at Colorado; they have Cale Makar who's smaller. But
Even
the
Sam Girard, right?
yeah, exactly. But the fact is, at the end of the day, bigger players are harder to play against. You can have skilled guys in there. You can have a Cole Caulfield. You can have a Lane Hudson, but you don't want a lineup full of them.
No doubt. And I think to your point, it's that one of the things. It's yes, it's the taller guys. It's that build. But if there's one thing that Vegas decor did so well to make themselves so difficult to play against, is the fact that they have that ridiculous reach.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at this lineup, and obviously we'll get to the third line. Obviously, Hudson lacks in that department. He's a little bit undersized. But like you said, a lineup with Reinbacher, Guhle, and Mailloux, who are three guys that are over 6 foot. Reinbacher and Mailloux specifically, who have those incredibly long reaches. It's just going to be so difficult for players to dance around the ozone and get around them with ease. I just think it's going to be, you're going to have Reinbacher on one pairing, Mailloux on the next. I think teams are going to really struggle. But again, pure speculation. We're looking at 4 years down the line, but I do think that this could be a Stanley Cup winning decor, no doubt in my mind.
100%. 100%. Let's go on to the third pairing. And speaking about tough guys to play against, Arbor Jacki starts it off on that third line.
My God.
He was not in our 2028 mock lineup last season, and we got a lot of hate for it. And we gave a reasoning. We just didn't think he had the ability to develop into a guy in a permanent spot in a lineup. But here, he makes the lineup. And I think, taking back some of the comments a lot of people said, he's the type of guy in the playoffs that you want to have. He is very, very tough to play against. He has some scoring ability. He really does. He gets shots off, and sometimes they'll absolutely go through the boards. But when they're on net, it's a tough shot. It's going to lead to more chance, and I think that's a huge part of his game, besides the fact that he's a heavy hitter. He wins battles in the corners, and he's a fighter. Look, nowadays you don't see the enforcer game that much, and I wouldn't consider him a pure enforcer, but when you have a guy on the ice that you don't want to skate down the wing on, it kind of helps you out a lot, because they're going to go for more changes. They're going to go for more dump-ins and get the puck out rather than carrying it in. And I think Jacki just brings a style that you don't see that often anymore. He's a guy that you want to have on your team.
No, I want him on my team. I don't. Here's the thing. People in the comments or people that are watching this might say, like, we don't think that he's a good enough defenseman, and I don't think that his role in the NHL is sustainable, and I don't think that he's good enough to play a defensive role consistently in a top lineup. You're not completely wrong. I'm not going to sit here and say that he is the best third pairing defenseman that you'll ever see. But if there's one thing that he brings that the rest of this lineup that we've created doesn't, is what Liam mentioned, and it's that grit. And you need that. You definitely need that. We mentioned it in the part one with that bottom six, where teams, even if they're moving away from it on the third line, they're still maintaining that grit on the fourth line. And we still believe that if you're not going to have two guys on your decor that are tough and gritty, at least make it be one. And if it's going to be one, at least let it be Arbor Jacki, because he brings that enforcer. He brings that scary presence. He brings that fighting ability in times where the team needs a bit of a pump up. And I want that on my team. And even if he is maybe not the best left shot defenseman on this team, I still think he brings something that's an intangible that is so beyond valuable to this Canadiens lineup.
Yeah, and look, I don't have the best comparable defenseman, but if we're looking at some of the past Stanley Cup winners, or guys that played a big role on a playoff team, I like to think like Radko Gudas for the Panthers had a huge role in that team, has a little bit of that scoring ability, like, very
A
minimal,
random offensive
but
upside,
yeah, exactly. It's the random offensive upside along with the scary to play against, the tough guy to play against. And again, look at Colorado, Jack Johnson or Eric Johnson. I think they had Jack Johnson too that year. But anyways, both those guys not super offensive, but bring this defensive style and this tough to play against role. And I was just thinking of a Tampa one as well, but I forget who it was. Like either way, you need to have that one guy who brings that grit, and that's just a playoff thing, I think.
No doubt. We'll move to that right side with our final spot, and then we'll get into a couple honorable mentions. We're looking at a guy that was drafted 110th overall well, not this past draft, but 2 drafts ago. So same draft as David Reinbacher. 4th round, 110th overall, 5'11", 21-year-old Bogdan Konyushkov. I think that this is one of those picks where it's like it was a dart throw. That's kind of, in my opinion. I know all scouts and all teams will tell you that they're picking the guy that they view the most, that they like the most, and I don't think that there's any doubt that they got their viewings in with Bogdan Konyushkov. But I don't think that, in my opinion, I don't think there's any scout, maybe a few, that could tell you that this player was going to turn into the solid player that we've seen in the last 2 seasons in the KHL. He's playing in the Russian men's league, and he just most recently put up 28 points in 65 games. I mean, like, as your third pairing guy, like, I don't think you can go wrong there.
Yeah. And I mean, again, both of us are not avid scouts who are watching this guy play all the time, but from the minimal highlights I see, from the minimal tape I watch of Bogdan Konyushkov, I can confidently say that this guy is really close to being NHL ready. He's played 2 years in a men's league in the KHL, and it's not about the points being good. It's just about his style of play. Look, he's not going to be a 40-point defenseman in the NHL. I mean, maybe he could be, but the fact that, again, it's a guy who knows how to drive the play and a player that maybe a lot of people don't know about, but is a very good, like just a very good defenseman overall. And if we're looking back to last year when the Canadiens had like the behind the scenes thing they do every year, they were very big on Bogdan Konyushkov. And I think Nick Bobrov probably has a big role and big say in that pick. And I think he was picked as an overager as well. But I think the advantage of that is you get a guy who's a little bit more developed, a little bit more sturdy. And I think he's shown that in the KHL in these past 2 seasons.
Yeah, I like it. I think in that sheltered third line role, first of all, scary, both Konyushkov and Jack on the left. If we want to talk for a second, again, I don't want to get into too much on Konyushkov just based off of, like you said, limited viewing. We don't really know too much about him. But we'll talk about the guys that we left out and then we actually probably know more about than Konyushkov. And we'll start with the first player being, let me just pull it up here. The first player being Adam Engstrom.
Yeah.
Drafted, sorry, it's coming up here.
Yeah.
Drafted in the 3rd round, 92nd overall in 2022. He's currently 20 years old. He's played 2 years in the SHL. Last season he had 22 points in 51 games. The season before that he had 16 and 43. Now again, don't know too much about him. See a few clips here and there, but he is 20 years old, so there is room to grow. Liam, is there a reason we left him off the list, or is it just based off of the fact that we like the other guys a little more?
Yeah, I think there's some personal preference that plays into it. But again, from the things I've heard of Adam Engstrom, his training camp was very good last year. He made it all the way to the end, actually. So again, a guy who's only 20 years old is taking those steps and is developing correctly. Again, I think this is a guy who can make the NHL. Just because I leave him off doesn't mean that, or just because we leave him off doesn't mean that he's not going to make the NHL. It's just the fact that we like some other guys a little bit more. But I do think Adam Engstrom does make the NHL at some point. Maybe he's that 6th defenseman for the Canadiens. Maybe he's a 7th. Who knows? But I think there's a lot of time to see as well.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that will just come with time more than anything, and we'll see. Like, I mean, he could easily be a rotation guy and that 7th guy that kind of comes in and out. But again, we're just speculating right now. A couple other guys that I didn't pull up their DBs, so I don't even think it's worth bringing up their DBs, and I don't think we're going to spend too much time. Jaden Struble, Justin Barron. I'm a bigger fan of Jaden Struble than I am Justin Barron. Justin Barron is kind of that guy that I can't put any confidence into. And I know he's still young and he's still a project, but I just don't know if I can ever see him being a game in, game out guy with this roster. I just don't. Struble a bit more, but I think that, in my opinion, when constructing this lineup, it was either Jack or Struble, and I think we went with the Jack route. Is that fair?
I think that's fair. I do like Struble and how he plays, but again, a bit of a smaller defenseman. And when you got Hudson,
he plays big though.
Yeah, he does play big. He does play big. Don't get me wrong, but I just think the other guys play a stronger role for their play style. I just don't think he's gonna have a long future with the Canadiens. But I hope he does. I really do hope he does, because I think he brings a lot to the table.
Yeah, so we'll leave it at that, because I think we're going to get to see a lot of Justin Barron and Struble this year, and maybe we'll be convinced otherwise. But we're going to know the beautiful thing about being a sports fan. There's only like 2 days the whole year without a game. 2. With so much happening and so much action, that makes just about every day game day at DraftKings Sportsbook. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. It really couldn't be any easier, any simpler. Guys, this is the perfect time to get in and start betting on futures for football, for hockey. These seasons are right around the corner, and there's no time to wait. And if you are new to DraftKings, you got to check this out. New customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Guhle Casino and Resort, 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. Copyright NHL 2023. All rights reserved.
I'm going to move on to the goalies, and I think that this is probably going to be a very predictable tandem here, or maybe not, but I think the first guy will be.
Yeah.
We've got Jacob Fowler, who's currently playing at Boston College, lighting it up there, going into his second full season with Boston College, I believe, or third full season. But nonetheless, backed up by the one, the only, the Montreal Canadiens current starter, Samuel Montembeault. So if you wanted to give us a little insight there, Liam.
Yeah, Jacob Fowler, late round pick. Was he late?
Second round pick.
Oh, he was a second round. Okay, never mind. So second round pick. Again, coming out of the draft, we weren't really sure who he was because he played in like the USHL, right?
Yeah.
For a lesser known team, but his stats definitely spoke, and the way he handles himself in terms of his confidence and ability to conquer all the obstacles is just amazing. He's just a very inspiring guy to listen to, and it just seems like he continues that wherever he goes. He goes to Boston College this year, and just take a look at those stats. 2.14 goals against with a .926 save percentage. Like, come on. That's absolutely unreal. The talk and the hype about Jacob Fowler right now is just off the charts. All the insiders really do like him, and just watching him is just it's fun. It's fun to watch. I think he has a great future for the Canadiens.
And this just goes to show you folks that, again, there's no proof in the pudding just yet, but I think based off what we're seeing so far is that there is that drafting goalies a little bit later and I think that's why we're not seeing many goalies, even this past season, this past draft, there were no goalies that went in the first round, right? So look, I think the one thing that sticks out to me, again, following a very similar theme from our previous picks, it's the character. It's the will and the desire to win. He won with the Youngstown Phantoms in 22-23. He put up a 9, like you mentioned before, a 9.21, but he went 27-9-4. And just when you thought it couldn't get better, like you said, 9.26, 32-6-1. Again, granted, on an unbelievable BC team, right? Ryan Leonard, Gabe Perreault, Will Smith. Yep. But it does, and I don't want to miss out on Cutter Goetze either, but it doesn't change the fact that he was still, like, I think the one underrated thing about goalies, Liam, and I want to hear what you have to say, is that you can be an unbelievable team like they were, and obviously they're going to put up the goals, but it doesn't change the fact that you can still suffer from a statistical standpoint. Like, you can still accumulate wins, but you don't necessarily have to have the stats. Yeah. And at the 9.26 with a 2.14 is just Those are like
It's
Devin Levi
unreal.
numbers.
And yeah, exactly. There you go. And he was on that World Junior team this past year that they won, I'm pretty sure, right?
The US team,
the
yeah.
US won. He wasn't the starter, but played his fair share of games, and I believe he did pretty well. So I think Jacob Fowler has a lot of potential and probably not going to be ready for a few more
He's
years at
19.
least. He's 19. There you go. He's going into his second year in college. He's going to have to play a year or two in Laval, and then maybe he gets that call. But I think in 4 years, that's that spot where, we're going to hear a lot more about him. And I think he's going to come in and be a really good goalie.
And I just want to take back what I said before also. Not second, third round pick. So 69th.
He was third round pick? Okay.
So I think it was a
Still,
pretty early.
Relatively early, but not a first or second round pick.
Well, that was also the year that the Canadiens took like 1,000,001 goalies. So,
Yeah.
I feel like we were bound to hit on one. But but also, like you mentioned before, I really did enjoy his the behind the scenes with him, because that's where I really thought, okay, this guy's a winner. I think that he's here for the long run. I think that he wants to be in Montreal. I think that he's part of the plan. So I like that. Let's look at the backup.
Yeah.
And this guy has a bit more of a resume than Fowler does, of course. And that guy is the one, the only, like I mentioned before, Samuel Montembeault, 27 years old. So if he's born in October, so if we're looking at 4 Octobers from now, he'll be 31. He'll be 31. What are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think that he can be a viable backup at 31 years old? I think so.
I definitely think so. I think the backup goalie can literally be anybody. You sign a guy for 1 year if you're a contender, try to get a vet guy. But I think a vet guy like Montembeault would be absolutely amazing to have as a backup goalie, considering the development he's shown over the last 2 years. I want to say, I just see no reason why he can't be a viable and a serviceable goalie in the NHL, whether that's a backup role, maybe a 1B role. But I really do like Montembeault. And again, I had the chance to be on the ice with Montembeault, and the guy's huge. He's literally huge. He covers the whole net. Like, he's got to be like 6'5" on the ice, 6'4" on the ice. Like, right. It's wild. And again, I think, unfortunately, his numbers suffer a little because the Canadiens haven't been a good team. But I feel like starting this year, we're going to get a chance to see the real and true skill of Montembeault. We got a lot of flashes of it last season. I just like the first game that comes to mind is that Rangers game where he absolutely killed it. And I think we recorded a pod after that saying how good he was. But we see those flashes from Montembeault, and I think it's all about consistency, like with any goalie.
And I think if you look at his numbers too, like consistently throughout his Canadiens career, he's gotten better from a statistical standpoint. Like you said, things are probably pointing in the right direction for him to have better numbers this coming season. And yeah, I think that he kind of he'll be like Jake Allen to Jordan Binnington, like Jake Allen was to Jordan Binnington in that run, where it's like that older presence, but is able to come in and steal games. Like, he's the reason that the Canadiens don't finish lower in the standings every year.
Yeah.
Like, he's literally, like, other than the Slav season, like the Reinbacher season, fifth to last, because it went according to plan, right? Fifth to last. Last year, fifth to last. Like, he's the reason that the Canadiens are not a bottom 3 team, and yeah, they're a bottom 5 team, but you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. If we're looking at the advanced stats, his goals above or saved above whatever expected.
His WAR is probably ridiculous.
It's crazy. It's like top 3 in the league because he steals games. That's literally the whole point of that stat. You can see which goalies steal games. Him and Primo, honestly. And again, we leave Primo off this list. I think he's 25, 26 now.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. We didn't bring it up. We'll talk about it for a second because I completely forgot about it.
Yeah.
We did leave Primo off this list, despite having a really good back end of the season once Jake Allen was traded.
Yeah, Primo's a goalie that's either going to boom or bust. And look, if he's able to continue to develop, I know he's getting older, but again, he had that potential, and I still think he does have a little bit of potential to be a 1B goalie. I don't know if he'll be a 1A or ever a starter, but again, I think he'll become serviceable, and he's shown flashes of being a good goalie. It's just all about the consistency once again. It's hard to see when you have a bad team in front of you, but I think he's shown the right things and the right flashes to be a good goalie in the NHL. If we're just taking a look at these stats,
like, he had a 910 last year, obviously only through 23 games, but that's with
good.
The Canadiens,
like that's good
like,
through 23 games. I gotta say,
I don't want to give up on him just yet, but I do think, and here's my what's the word I'm looking for? My argument as to why I would take Monty over Primo. I think it's just strictly based off the consistency.
Yeah.
I don't know if you said that before.
No, I didn't say that, but I agree with you. I definitely agree with you.
It's just like I think what you'll get from Montembeault is a more consistent product than Primo. And if I want my
Yeah.
backup to come in and be solid with whether it's injury or whether that's just because a goalie's going through a slump, I think I can rely more on Monty than I can on Primo. But that's
Yeah.
that's early.
The one thing I want to point out is when Laval made that crazy playoff run, he was unreal, like absolutely unreal. And I feel like having a solid team in front of you helps that a lot. I mean, obviously that's for any goal. If you have a good team in front of you, you're gonna have better stats and probably more confidence, and you're gonna play better. But the Rocket weren't that good. They just had a very hot roster at the time. Everyone was playing really well, and Primo was very locked in. So if he's able to find that consistency in the NHL, I feel like he's going to be very serviceable.
I definitely agree. And that just about rounds up our 2028 projected Montreal Canadiens lineup. Of course, as per usual, let us know what you think down below. I think that this was like a fun episode because it brings everything up. Like I mentioned this at the top, but discussions, debates, whatever. What do you agree with us on? What do you not agree with us on? Like, please let us know because I think it's fun to talk about. But that was definitely a fun episode, and I'm curious to see if any of this comes to fruition. We'll definitely keep tabs. We'll definitely.
Yeah. Well, we're going to do this every year.
Exactly, but we're gonna keep receipts, and I wonder, and let us know also down below if you think like what you think like what could be different next year. Let's put it that way. What could be different next year? But anyway, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for tuning as per usual. That was episode 86, and we'll catch you in the next episode.